So anyway, this is episode number 30, and today's guest is General Garrison. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So we were kind of talking off the podcast of like what he did this morning, and he's like, I just got off a plane. So yeah, it's a pleasure. And as you see, we have a little different scenery. We are actually here at Castle Air Force Base in Atwater, California. I would say it's like a little hidden gem, but it's not really hidden. It's like right off of Santa Fe, so you can't miss it. When you're heading north on Santa Fe, it's right onto your right. You see the big old Air Force 2, sometimes Air Force 1. Is that right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, depending on who was on it, because that call sign's for the person that's sitting inside, right?
Right. Yes, that is right. So I actually went to Open Cockpit and went through the tour of Air Force 1 / Air Force 2. So that was really cool. What presidents were on Air Force 1 with the one that we have here in Atwater?
So for sure, Reagan, Bush, Clinton.
Okay.
And maybe even Bush number 2.
Oh, okay. Maybe Bush number 2.
Yeah.
I knew about Reagan and Clinton.
Yes.
And that's what was said during our little tour.
Yeah, I don't know exactly when it left service because they've replaced all those airplanes during that time period.
Right.
Most of them. But yeah, it's a unique artifact.
Yeah.
To have that. And, Queen Elizabeth was on the airplane at one point. You saw her picture there.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just our presidents or our first ladies. It was also, other dignitaries that would come in. So it's got a really unique history.
Yes, it does.
How did that work out? How did Queen Elizabeth get on that plane?
She's a guest of the United States, and she was probably a guest of the president or the first lady, and they were going somewhere. And you're going to, when you're a guest in someone else's country, generally you can fly on their rig, right?
Yeah.
Come and fly on a rig. Obviously, we probably don't do that with the American president because of the security and everything that's involved. But when you get a little more out of the stratosphere of leadership, I guess, or the security concerns, then you allow people, and hey, come on, we're trustworthy people.
I guess so, right?
The Queen can fly on our
you can trust us.
Yeah.
So I really love this place out here. I've been out here a few times, like usually during Open Cockpit. I brought my 2 boys actually this go around, and my dad. It was my dad's first time coming out here, and he's like, I want to go onto Air Force 1, and I want to go on that tour. And I told him, I was like, oh yeah, it's an extra $10 fee. And he's like, I don't care how much it is. It could have been $100. I wanted to make sure that I've been here and all of that. So he had a really great time touring all the planes. So what is one of your favorite planes that we have out here at Castle?
Well, my favorite is probably the F-16, just because I flew that airplane for 26 years.
Oh wow!
So, but we've got. You can't miss with the SR-71.
Okay.
Really neat airplane, and the story behind it, as far as how rapidly it was advanced or came together, what it did, speed-wise, altitude-wise, and how unique the cadre of pilots flew it. I mean, it's a really small cadre. It's in the 80s. I think the number is 82. Pilots that flew the airplane, pilot and crew. They had an RSO on the airplane as well. So it's just Mach 3 plus. I mean, 30 miles a minute. You're 85,000 plus feet. And how fast it goes and how high it really went is still classified, even though the airplane's not operational anymore. And pretty soon we'll pass it. We're 30 years in since it's stopped flying operational missions. But so that's a neat airplane. And then we've got a lot of unique, just neat airplanes that you won't see anywhere else. And there's you got to be an enthusiast to know.
Yeah.
The B-45 was the first jet bomber in the U.S. Air Force inventory.
Oh, wow.
There's 3 on display in the United States, and one of them sitting out there.
That's crazy. A little old Atwater, California. We have one of 3 of them.
And it's the only one that has the birdcage nose. It doesn't have the recti nose. So it actually had the nose where the bombardier would sit, and just like a normal. The other airplanes that are on display, the nose is solid. And then the B-36, I think, is one of 4. The B-18 is one of 5. The B-23. And all of these are, when you say those numbers, everyone's like, oh, whatever, because they are that unique. The B-58, I believe, is one of 5 that are on display across the United States. I try to update these numbers because it changes. Airplanes come and go, kind of. How museums do those things. But you start getting in that realm. Not only it's unique that they're there, but to be here in the Central Valley, and out here in all the sun and the rain and outside is kind of a different. It's a unique place to go see an airplane because you kind of see it in the wild. So, we haven't boxed everything up yet. So.
Yeah, we truly do have a unique hidden gem here in the valley, here in Merced County, and here in little old Atwater, right? So, you said that you've flown an F-16.
Yeah.
And have you ever had the opportunity to escort any of these bombers while flying?
I actually B-52s and B-1s. I've done that, and
on practice missions.
Yeah,
and what's the experience doing that kind of stuff? Because I'm sure high, very intense and high adrenaline.
Yeah,
a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I was going to say, and to be honest with you, it was that's the job. And so you get into these things. When you say escorting, I'm thinking of B-52s. I did some escorting to them in Japan. This would have been in the early 90s, and we would have this massive exercise with the Japanese Air Force, and we'd bring in the U.S. Navy, and the B-52s would come in, and they had an anti-ship or an anti-sea lane mission. They'd do mines and stuff like that. So you'd get a bunch of airplanes at one end of the airspace, and you'd get the B-52s and a bunch of fighters down at the other end, and we'd go. And these are huge missions. I mean, it'd be 24 airplanes on the adversary side. There'd be 36 or more airplanes on the friendly side, and then off you go. And then you'd see the B-52 in the midst of all this. And the object of the whole thing was to get this guy to his target and get back. And so I just have these images. You see this B-52 skimming over the water, and you're up at 35,000 feet, and you see the airplane down there. And then another one I have is we did a lot of exercises with the B-1, and you could do that. Airplane's fast enough, you can do close escort, meaning you can get in formation with them because it'll go 0.85, 0.9, it'll go 1.0 Mach. They'll keep up with you because it's a neat airplane. And so I just have these images of us escorting, and there's a couple of them. I'm escorting B-1s. There's 2 B-1s in Singapore. And we push out in a formation, and it makes it all look the same. And then we kind of, do some form of deception to get them to the target or whatever. Then another one, I was in an exercise at Nellis, and we're escorting this B-1 in, and we're going 540 knots. We're flying next to each other, and he hits the target. And then as he's leaving the target, they have a ton of gas that we don't have. Mm-hmm. They just light the burners. And I take off. I don't have the gas to do that. And they just walk away, and then it's just me and my wingman out here. Okay, we're the last guys here. Now everybody has something to shoot at besides that big airplane. So, yeah, it's just flying fighters in the Air Force is a unique experience. It's a lot of fun, and and you see it just in recent events, right? Yeah. The ability for us to put all of these platforms together, execute a mission, it's a thing that the Air Force does, and we're really good at, and we train people to be expert at that, and we've been doing it for a long time. So, it's just like anything. If you do something a long time, you get really refined at it. You know the process. You're able to pass that on. It's hard to communicate to the general public just how lethal we are, and how all of this stuff being put together in one place, can be pretty awesome.
Yeah. So in the Air Force, how long did you serve in the Air Force for?
31 years.
31 years.
Yeah.
So from the time, so what year did you retire?
I retired 6 years ago, 2019.
2019.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what all Air Force bases did you fly from? Where were you stationed at? What were some of your favorite ones that you went to?
Yeah, so I was active duty in the active duty Air Force for 14 years.
Okay.
And then I was in the Guard for the last 17. So on active duty, I went to pilot training in Texas, Wichita Falls, Texas.
Okay.
Did a little bit of what they call lead-in fighter training at the time in Holloman Air Force Base, New Mexico. So it's basically out in the middle of the desert in New Mexico, southern New Mexico, just north of El Paso. And then I did my F-16 training in Tampa, Florida, at MacDill Air Force Base, which is now the headquarters of CENTCOM. And then I went to Japan for 6 years. So I was in northern Japan. I was at a place called Misawa, and it's about 400 miles north of Tokyo. So the northern tip of Honshu, just south of Hokkaido. Japan's an island chain on the big main island. We are on the very northern tip of that, up where 130 inches of snow a year. We're right on the water. Wow. It's pretty chilly place, and the weather can be difficult at times, but it was a fantastic place to fly airplanes because at the time there was really no airspace restrictions in Japan because this is just at the end of the Cold War.
Oh, okay. So we're talking like the 19...
This is 1990.
Oh, okay.
So it was I got to Misawa, Japan just prior to Desert Storm.
Oh, okay.
So I showed up in August. Desert Storm is in January.
Of 91, right?
91.
Got it.
So, some of my peers that I was in F-16 school with, I think 3 of them actually fought in the war. The rest of us were all just arrived at our bases. We're getting trained or whatnot, and we did our thing. But the American Air Force at the time was huge. Mm-hmm. It's 3 times, again, the size of what it is today. I mean, the Air Force today is about 1/3 the size of what it was in 1990.
Oh, really?
When I first started flying. So... so there were airplanes everywhere. And so you deploy a bunch of airplanes to the desert for Desert Storm. There's still a lot of other airplanes and bases and missions that are going on at the same time. So I ended up there in 1990, and I ended up staying there for 6 years.
Okay.
Because the flying environment was just awesome. And everyone told me my career would be destroyed by staying in one place because the Air Force is all about moving you and experiencing you and doing it. And I'm like, my mindset is, hey, man, this is awesome.
Well, I mean, when you don't have flight restrictions like there are in other countries and states.
We take off. You could go surface to 50,000 feet, not talk to anybody, which you can't do in the United States. I mean,
really?
You get above 18,000 feet, you have to talk to air traffic control.
Oh, okay.
It's called Class A airspace.
Okay.
None of that stuff existed at the time. And we could fly in Japan, and we could fly anywhere we wanted in a 200-mile radius at 500 feet.
Take full advantage of that.
I would too.
Yeah, 500 feet, 550 knots, you could go wherever you wanted. So it was just a unique flying environment, a lot of fun, and I gained a lot of important flying experience and flight leadership, and so did that for 6 years, and then I went to Shaw Air Force Base with a short stint at Nellis for some advanced schooling. And then left Nellis, went to Korea for a year on a remote because at the time we had a base in Korea that was unaccompanied. Mm-hmm. So my wife and children moved back to California. I went to Korea for a year and then came back from Korea, was assigned to the weapons school as an instructor for 2 years, which was by far my best assignment in the Air Force. And then I'm a local kid, and I got involved with the Air Guard at Fresno. They flew F-16s at the time, and they offered me basically what's called an active guardsman. So at the time, most guard bases have a full-time staff, a small full-time staff that keeps the place running because most of the rest of the staff they have other jobs, and they come in on drill weekend and
like the weekend warriors.
The weekend warrior, right? Yeah. So I was one of those full-time guys on the staff, so it was like I was on active duty Air Force, but I was in one place. So I stayed at Fresno for 14 years, and then the last 3.5 years I was basically running the California Air Guard. And that's as soon as I got promoted to general officer, my flying career ended, and I ended up retiring as a 2-star 3.5 years later.
Oh, okay, nice.
So that's kind of thumbnail sketch where I went. Not a bunch of places, and a lot of deployments to a lot of cool places in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard nothing but good things about Japan. I had two of my cousins that lived in Japan for a few years. One, how long was he out there for? It's like 4 years, just as a civilian. He wasn't in the military, and both as a civilian. Then I had another one that went to Japan. So his brother went to Japan like literally the year after he got back. So I've always had like somebody living in Japan, but I think he lives in Australia now. I think his wife is from Australia, so now they are residing in Australia.
They're moving around the Pacific Rim.
Yeah, which I mean, it's kind of cool.
Next.
It's kind of cool that and I actually just talked to him. We were talking about a UFC fight that happened this past weekend. We were both nervous about the fight of the Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira fight, and we both were on the same notion that who the winner was going to be, and exactly how we thought it was going to play out. So it was kind of cool catching up to him and like different time zones. So it was always really hard to catch each other at the right time, and we just caught each other at the right time. I was like, cool, I get to text my cousin for a little bit. So yeah, he's out in Australia. So what brought you here to Castle Air Force Base?
So as you mean as the Lord, I was going to say, I came to Castle Air Force Base in the 80s when it was Castle Air Force Base, and it's radically different now, right?
Yeah.
You say now that you can't miss the museum. And when people drive by on Santa Fe, they see some old airplanes out there, and they're probably like, oh, wow, old airplanes.
Yeah.
But, when it was Castle Air Force Base in the 80s, you couldn't come up Buhack Road and Santa Fe Drive without going, that's an Air Force Base, because it looked like it.
Oh, okay.
There was, bustling activity. There were B-52s in the pattern, KC-135s. I'm sitting at the McDonald's in our street. I still remember this as a kid. You're sitting down there on our street off of the V Street.
Oh, V and
99.
V and 99. Yeah.
Somewhere around in there. They have that.
I think it's our street, but still.
Yeah, right there. You'd be sitting at the McDonald's, and the B-52s would come over, their flaps and their gear down, and they're smoking. And, you couldn't be in Atwater or Merced and not realize that this is an Air Force base and what's going on out here, because it was just ubiquitous. Everything, the airplanes were in the air all the time because it was a training base for KC-135s and B-52s. And then I came here on a cross-country in 1989 when I was in pilot training. I came out here and landed, so I got to fly out here. And then my wife and brother and sister-in-law came up. We picked up me and my instructor. We went skiing, and it was just like
water
a
skiing or ice?
Water skiing.
Nice.
And just go out to the lake, water ski for a day, and the next day we're back in the T-38. We're heading back to Texas, living the life. But, the next time I came here, the base is closed.
Yeah.
And it's,
what was it, 94?
94.
Yeah.
And it's radically different.
Yeah.
Right? And, places are being torn down.
I always love asking people that know what life was like when the base was open and when they were going through when it closed, because it had such an economic impact here. And I was born right when the base closed, I believe, or just maybe a few months or a year after the base closed. So I didn't get to experience that. But what I did get to experience is all of the fallout right after the base closed, right? Because it impacted my family. It impacted everybody
impacted a lot of people
here in the valley, and the surrounding counties too, right? Madera County and Stanislaus County, because it provided a lot of economic revenue for those cities. So
you can't argue with the payroll of over, there's probably 5,000 people here on the payroll.
Yeah.
Minimum. That's just the feds.
And that's, you got to think, like, Stanislaus County is Turlock's only like 30 minutes away, and Madera is another 30 or 35
You could just
minutes.
hit Santa Fe, go right up to Denair, cross over to Turlock, right?
A lot of impacts from that. I know my grandfather actually was stationed out here. He was Lockhart, I think it was Lockhart, Texas. And then he got stationed out here. He met my grandmother who lived in Merced, and then that's how they got married. So I always say, if it wasn't for Castle Air Force Base, I probably wouldn't have existed.
There's a lot of those stories around here.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Yeah. So, I like, there's like a little piece of me that actually is because of Castle Air Force Base. So that's why I always enjoy coming out here, whether it's just, just cruising by it. Like, I live in Atwater now, so I get to see it all the time. Every Thursday night we go to the tarmac. So it's just kind of like, it's a part of my life.
It's a part of the culture around here.
Yeah, it is.
When I was growing up too, my mom would take me out here, me and my brothers, and we would come out, tour the planes, walk around. And now that I'm older and I come back and I look at it, it's like, it's a part of the culture. It's our history, and it means something.
Yeah, that I like to hear that. There's a lot of those stories. And, here we're here now. You say you come out as a kid. So the way I got associated with the museum initially is when we moved back after I got off of active duty, and now I'm an active guardsman, every year during Open Cockpit Day, one or the other, we would come up here as a family. Because we're airplane people. It's just, we're kind of weird, but if there's an airplane to be seen, we're going to figure out a way to go see it. So Open Cockpit Day, we would come out here all the time on Open Cockpit Day. So we've always been around the museum. Mm-hmm. And then when I retired, a gentleman on the board was someone that I had flown with in the Guard. And he says, hey, now that you're retired, why don't you come out here and start working on the board? And I'm like, oh, well, I'm retired, and I don't have a lot to do. I didn't realize at the time I'd probably have 4 jobs within about a year. But I'm like, hey, this will be cool, and I'll get involved in the board. And so that's how I got involved in the mechanics of the museum and really getting in the nitty-gritty. So, so I've been doing that now for 5 years. So I joined the board in January of 2020. So a little over 5 years now. I've been on the board and ended up being the chairman here 3 years ago.
Okay.
So
nice.
When we had our meeting here, I'm sorry, forgive me, I forgot the director's name or the gentleman that spoke to us.
Jeff Stopper. Was it Jeff Stopper?
What?
It might have been.
About the pavilion?
Yeah, about the big, the vision, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
was it?
Yeah.
Was
Yeah,
it?
I think
It was Jeff.
Forgive us if it wasn't, but
Jared,
Okay, Jeff.
Jared Hines is going to correct us on that one.
yeah. Jared was there as well, but oh man, like just to hear the vision of what Castle, what the next few years Castle will look like, because eventually it's going to happen, right?
For sure.
To be a major museum right here in the Valley, it's incredible, and you guys are working towards something. For lack of better words, crazy here.
It's crazy. No, it's a good crazy.
Yeah,
It is crazy awesome how everything. So a few years ago, when I first had Maverick, or when I should say me and my wife first had Maverick, I brought him out here and I just took him around the plains, and then I took him. The F-35, is that the one where Top Gun or what?
F-14.
F-14. So we went over to the
F-14, F-18. Yeah.
Yeah, I went
Top
over to the
original.
F-14. Yeah. So I went over to that one, and I was like, did the whole flyby, and no, the pattern is full. So it's one of my dad's favorite movies. So took him over to that. I had a good time with that. And then last year was the first time we had been since he was born, and it was just kind of crazy, to see the change, and just that 2-3 years, it's changed dramatically in 2-3 years, and it's like, holy crap. I want to see more. We obviously want to see more planes come here, and obviously there are more planes coming in and coming out. So
we've got one coming in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. So
so we're going to have an AV-8B, which is a Super Harrier. So it's a marine attack plane. The jump jets, the airplane that can take off and land vertically. It was the original.
Oh, yes.
So those are getting removed from active service, and they're shutting that program down. And as part of that process, they're farming out 12 airplanes to museums across the United States. It's 12 or 18. I talked to the gentleman 2 days ago, and we're getting one of the airplanes, and they're going to actually fly it in here on July 16th. And so hopefully we'll have some folks, that want to come out to the airport and watch a Harrier, because he's going to do a vertical landing.
Okay.
It's final landing. He says, I want to come out, the guy who's flying the airplane, I want to do a vertical landing for when it gets to the airport where we're finally going. Nice. So you'll see this jet fly in and come to a stop in midair and hover, and then maybe taxi a little bit and then set down on the ground.
That's going to be so cool.
Yeah. So hopefully, and this is happening super quick. So it's not like we had 6 months to plan for it.
Right.
So getting the word out is a little, it will just depend on social media and word of mouth. And
well, hey, so we're gonna put that in the description.
This.
Hey, check this. So we got a plane coming in that's going to do a vertical landing, the last one that it'll ever do. We'll do something.
Yeah, I'm sure Jared will let us know about it too, and then we can share it and let people know.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Cool.
Yeah. So always stuff coming in, and there's stuff coming in behind it even. So
yeah.
One of the most recent planes that just came in was the Black Bunny, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
What kind of plane is that one?
So that is an F-4S Phantom. So it's a 1960s airplane. It was built in the 1960s. It was a Navy version of an F-4J that they upgraded and became an F-4S. So they started as J's, became an S, and it's was stationed at Point Mugu in the test squadron there, and they were allowed to put the Playboy bunny on the tail.
Yes.
So it became kind of a California icon. Mm-hmm. It was stationed at Point Mugu in California. It's painted the gloss black, and it had the trademarked Playboy bunny, and it's the one that Playboy wouldn't allow us to put it on there. They were very specific. It had to be this, this wide, this tall, this blah, blah, so that it's specific. And they allowed that to be put onto the airplane. Well, the airplane, they retired it in the early 80s, and it's been sitting down on the boneyard in basically Pima, Arizona, at Davis-Monthan Air Base. There's a place down there, they call it AMARC now, Aircraft Material, my military acronyms, like Regeneration Center, whatever. But anyway, when you retire military aircraft, they go down there to the desert because it's the right environment. They won't corrode.
Oh, okay.
And
there's not so much humidity.
There's not exactly. It's a dry, hot place.
No sea salt either.
Gotcha.
Yep. So you can seal the airplanes with a latex so that nothing gets in, and they pickle the insides. So the idea is if there's an airplane that goes in there operational, you should be able to pull it out and make it operational again in about 5 days. And they've done it with F-16s. They do it. But then there's all these airplanes down there, and if they need parts, A-10's a perfect example. The A-10s basically wore out their wings. There were a bunch of them in the boneyard, so rather than ground airplanes and take their wings off so that they can build new ones, you take the wings off of the ones in the boneyard, refurbish them, and then you just do a wing swap. So there's parts like that. There were airplanes down there, F-16s, that were supposed to go to Pakistan decades ago. Navy decides they need an adversary airplane. And they go, well, we've got these airplanes that were supposed to go to Pakistan. They're just sitting there. Take them out, start flying them. You know, they pull them out. They take off the latex, unpickle the motors. 5 days later, you know, they're flying an airplane. And then do some avionics work, whatever, and now you got an operational airplane. So it's a place. And shoot, when I was a maintenance group commander, we would call down there if we needed unique parts, because our airplanes are all old, except for the F-35 and the F-22, and things start to break that you didn't anticipate. So you can, like a drag brace on a landing gear or something like that. You just call down, hey, I need a drag base for the left main landing gear on an F-16. They go out there, they pull it off that airplane, send it to you, and your flyable airplane's back. So that's where it ended up. Long story short, the F-4S ends up out there in the desert.
Just listening to that goes to show you the amount of research and development, R&D, that our military has in learning, okay, and we can store these planes and in 5 days make them operational again. We can take and pick and pull essentially parts.
Yeah, it's pick and pull.
It's a pick and pull.
It's a pick and pull for Air Force airplanes, for the military. So, and a quick anecdote before we get back to the F-4S. So we're down there, we're in an exercise. It was right after I came to the Guard, so this is early 2000s, 2003. And when fighters are flying in the Air Force, they always put a pilot in the tower, just in case, because it's a single-seat airplane. If you need help with an emergency, you want a guy who knows what's going on, who can kind of help and coordinate things. So we're down at Tucson at Davis-Monthan for an exercise, and it's my turn to be up in the tower. I'm the supervisor of flying, they call me. And I'm up there, and this delegation from the Israeli Air Force comes up there. And from the tower at Davis-Monthan, you can look over the boneyard.
Right.
And there's over 1,000 airplanes out there. And at the time, there were hundreds of F-16s, old F-16s, A and B models. And so this guy, Israeli Air Force, comes up there, and he's looking out there, and he says, hey, I have a set of binoculars. He said, can I look through your binoculars? Yeah, sure, go ahead. Hand him the binoculars, and he kind of looks out there, and he says, are all those F-16s? I said, yeah, those are all F-16s. Well, how many are out there? And I'm like, geez, I don't know, 500? And he looks at me, what do you do with them? I looked down and said, they're the leftovers. And it was just, it's a sign of American economic power. His entire Air Force has 200 F-16s, right? Israeli Air Force, very credible, obviously. But at that time, 200 airplanes, 200 F-16s. We have 500 of them just sitting in the desert doing nothing. So it's mind-blowing, right? When you start talking about the logistics and how things work, and at the time, the way it's just that's just one anecdote, and it happened all the time in my Air Force career, where you would just get it's hard to describe. But so now back to the Phantom. It was down there, and we went through a campaign to acquire it, pull this icon out of the boneyard and put it on display, because we already have an F-4 Phantom. It's, we have it painted up as Steve Dwelly's Thunderbird back when he was in the Thunderbirds in the mid-'70s.
Okay. Steve is
still alive, by the way. He lives in Visalia. Comes up to the museum. Neat guy. I had him out at the base one weekend for a heritage event. So we're going to pull this thing out and put it on display. And so we raised the money, got it carted up here. We freshened up the paint, rolled it out, and at a minimum, it's an internet icon, because every time we put that thing on the internet, on our social media, it hits. It goes viral. Yeah, 500,000.
What a catch, right? To find that in the boneyard, and bring it back. And bring it here to Atwater, to little Atwater, right?
Yeah.
Why was it even there in the first place if it's just such an iconic thing just sitting there,
because
right?
you got to find someone who wants to take it on. Airplanes aren't cheap.
Yeah, that's very true. So that's why we always you guys are always asking for yearly memberships, the extra $10 to go onto the Air Force One.
Yeah,
there's a lot of reasons.
Not to mention all the events that are going on here.
Yeah, so
so many events year round.
I remember in 2019 there was a brew festival here.
Yeah,
it was so awesome because I'm over here drinking some craft beers, and we're in the planes, and it was it's just one of those things. It's like where else can you do that? Like there's not many places where you can do that.
Yeah,
little old Atwater, you can do that here. So
wait, what happened to that?
Well, COVID happened the next year, so I don't know.
And then COVID kind of shut that down, and then there's competing interests, right? The tarmac is right next door, and
and I think the tarmac was getting ready to open later that year. Mm-hmm. So they I don't know if they put a stop to it, but they had like a little bit of a little booth there. I actually talked to
it was the Atwater Kiwanis put it on for a while. So it was a fundraiser for the Kiwanis that we collaborated with. There's a myriad of reasons. We're open to everything. It takes a fair it takes $35,000 a month just to run this place.
Wow.
And our staff is minuscule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Our full-time staff. So we're highly reliant on volunteers, and our special events are the things that allow us to restore airplanes, put more airplanes on display, paint them, and do those kinds of things. An airplane outdoors like this. When I was in the Air Force, I had 10 airplanes in my little air museum at Fresno. I budgeted $30,000 a year just to maintain the airplanes.
Oh, wow.
Outdoors. Which is why we're trying to put them indoors, and which is why Jeff Stopper was at your real estate. He was showing you the vision for the place.
Yes.
Because the idea is to get the airplanes. The worst thing you can do to an airplane is keep it out in the sun and get it wet. Rain, water intrusion, and sunlight kill an airplane. Just even the airplanes that we were flying in the Air Force, we figured that once we put them under a shade cover, we saved about $40,000 a year in maintenance.
Oh, I bet, because the sun is brutal.
It's brutal. And, oh, by the way, I get the added benefit of when they're just out there in the sun, nobody wants to work on them because they're too hot to touch. Mm-hmm. I put them under a shade cover. I encourage TLC. And so it was a lot of benefit. So we're trying to put it, we're going to put a 60,000 square foot pavilion here, and it's going to go right behind it where we're talking. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a 27,000 square foot pavilion behind us. So behind me. And then a 60, that's kind of a rodeo cover, which you saw on the, and that's going to be a reality. Our site plan is at the city of Atwater right now, and hopefully maybe move some dirt come this fall, maybe beat a little bit of rain. Yeah. And we've got to do it in stages because you got to have a place to roll the airplanes out of the way so that you can do construction. So the idea is to get the stuff to the east here, the stuff behind me, graded, put the rodeo cover up, move a bunch of airplanes over here, and then that'll open up the space to put in our 60,000 square foot pavilion. And then that will give us a place, one, to preserve our most valuable artifacts, those rarities. SR-71, we have an F-117, the original stealth fighter. It can never go outside. That's what our agreement is with the Department of the Air Force. Because most of our artifacts are owned by the Department of the Navy or Department of the Air Force. They're on loan to us, but we're required to maintain them. In that case, it has to stay inside. So we'll put that pavilion in there, and then it will make it a little more congenial in the summertime. Hopefully, when people come out here on a tour bus, they'll have a place they can go see 20, 24 really neat airplanes in the comfort of at least shade and semi-climate controlled. Yeah. And then if it's raining, they can do that. So that's part of the vision, and there's more to come, right? That's the near term.
Yeah, it opens up the door to a lot more possibilities here, and just to continue growing.
And the other, hopefully, to help the city of Atwater, it'll be a venue space. I mean, how many places in Atwater can you put 500 people and have a?
There's not many.
Yeah,
there's a 500. No, I don't
know if the community center can hold the Atwater Community Center can hold that many people.
Maybe.
It might be close.
It's close, but not...
500 people is a lot of people.
I think there's only one spot in Merced, which is out at the fairgrounds. The big one, the pavilion, I think is what it is. Yeah. That's the only one that I think can hold 500.
So that's kind of the idea. Not only will it be a place where we preserve these things and put them in, but it'd also be we're trying to build kind of an event space so that we can partner with the community in that way. And then how many places can you go where you can have a party right next to Air Force One?
Not many.
Or an SR-71
There's not
or all that.
places.
You know, you go to
makes for a great backdrop too for pictures and everything.
Yeah, it really does.
You go down to Palm Springs Air Museum down there. This time of year, or not this time of year, but in the April, May, June.
Right.
There's proms in there.
Can you imagine the high schoolers coming out here and just like, I'd be so jealous of them, like having their proms out here. I mean, I think one of them had a prom out here at the tarmac, which, I mean, that's kind of cool, but like not with like planes. You're not right next to the planes. That would have been really, really cool. So I just, every type of event that comes out here, I just think Raising Health that we helped out with last year, that was pretty cool, where they're doing the 5K, 10K, plus the fitness test, all out here on the tarmac, or at the Blaker tarmac.
We help volunteer help with that event. One of the directors came to our meetings and presented to us, and it was like we were on board. And I had some teammates compete in it, and it was a really well-ran event. It was a lot of fun.
Good. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I think I took off at about noon that day. I wanted to stay a little bit longer, but we had like other things going on in the afternoon, so I was like, wish I could stay a little bit longer. But it's just like I say, it's just an awesome experience to come out here. And I'm not like the biggest like plane enthusiast, but I just like seeing stuff like this for the little old community of Atwater. So let's talk about like events that you were talking about. So what involvement did you guys have with Luke Bryan coming to the tarmac? Did you guys have any involvement with that at all, or?
Well, we weren't involved in just the Luke Bryan part of it. That was done by the airport.
Right.
What we did do is we tripled the size of our RV park because we started getting calls immediately. People who wanted to be able to park their RVs, camp overnight, or even for a couple of days to minimize that. So we tripled the size of our RV park and for Luke Bryan, and it just gave us a format by which we could do it again. And so on 4th of July, if people want to come out here and do the fireworks and they don't want to fight the traffic or whatever, they can park their RV out at the RV park. We'll expand it again. They can spend the night, get up the next morning, and go out. So it just kind of opened our aperture to that. I'm hoping that we can expand more into our evening events. In other words, the partnership, if the airport or the tarmac is having something, maybe we can piggyback on that.
Yeah.
Give folks, an expanded venue, if you will.
Like a pre or a post.
Yeah. It's a bandwidth thing, right? One, you got to have the right idea, and then two, you've got to have the the manpower to pull it off. And this is a very, very lean operation. I mean, but we're working on that. If the more volunteers we get, the more things we're able to do. You just get more bandwidth. Manpower matters, and as you guys know in your Young Professionals Network, you got to have people to pull on the rope. And
there's a lot of stuff that goes on with doing all these events, and we kind of have behind the scenes. Like there's a lot of stuff that a lot of people just see. Oh, hey, we posted up a video. No, there's a lot of steps behind it. I know when we have our social media day, we usually do like an hour to 2 hours of shooting, and I don't know how long it takes you to edit those. I know it's time consuming, so I know myself that editing's time consuming. I can't imagine like working on a plane. These things are massive. It's not like it's a car either. They're what, 10 times the size of a car, if not bigger.
You haven't lived until you've watched a fighter size airplane, okay? Because you have no idea how much surface area there is on an airplane. An F-102 in square footage is the size of a house. So when you're washing an airplane, you're literally washing a house. So, I mean, they're huge. But we have our restoration hangar is very active, and we have a good relationship with UC Merced. So the engineering students come out to the restoration hangar, and they get hands-on experience, and which is great on a resume for one thing. But the other thing is it's one thing to pencil out everything. It's another thing to go out and actually see what you're penciling out. And you'll be working on some of these airplanes. You go, why did they do that? That's stupid. I can't get my hand in there, my head or whatever. And then you go, when you're the engineer, don't do that.
Putting pencil to practice.
Yeah, so that relationship is great. And then there's other areas we've tried to bring people in if they're interested in curation or archiving. We have that. And then We had 2 actual employees. It was a program where they came out here and worked and do some of our social media and advertising, work on school tours, docents, things like that. There's just a lot of different things that go into running the place, and then the events themselves, as you know, takes a lot of background. We have 2 open cockpit days a year: Memorial Day, Labor Day. We have a golf tournament in the fall. We have 2 car shows. We have the car show in the spring, the Bombs 8 car show, which is cool because you get all kinds of cars,
classic cars,
all the way to the what do they call them? The not the tech bros or the tuners.
Oh, yeah.
The thing that I like about this car show is everybody comes out. So you'll have the classic cars, the muscle cars, the tuners, the Porsche Club, the Corvette Club, and they all get their little sections underneath the airplanes. It's really kind of, and the feedback that I got when I was walking around this year was, hey, this is kind of a cool place because we can all be here.
Yeah.
It's not like you go down to L.A. and it's the Mopar Club, Mopar only. No Chevy, no Ford, and all that stuff. Here it's just kind of it's a more collegial atmosphere, at least for that weekend. And
you guys are all welcome, but make sure you stay on your side. Right? Stay over there.
This is our turf. That's right. It's like gang wars, but with cars. But yeah, no, I totally forget that there's a car show out here. I forget about that. I need to come out here for that one. I know my dad would probably want to come out for that because he gets both the best of worlds. He actually just inherited what year is it? 1962 Chevy El Camino. I know it's an El Camino, but I think it's a 62.
Very cool.
He's getting close to getting that thing turned on, and I'm pretty stoked. He actually inherited it from his brother, who passed away in 21. So he was able to get it earlier this year, and he's just went into retirement. And he's like, I got something to work on. This is my project. And he's like, I know you guys are going to be driving it more than I am. So no, I'm really excited to get that thing fired up, and so. But yeah, what other events do you guys have other than Open Cockpit, the car show? Do you guys have anything lined up for the rest of the year or anything like that we might not know about?
We do a thing. We've started a thing called Flicks of Flight. So in the evenings, once a month, we'll blow up a screen, or we set up a screen outdoors around one of the airplanes here.
Oh, that's right.
And the idea is to bring the kids out, or have just a nice evening out on the grass, watch a movie that's aviation oriented.
Okay.
And the kids have little projects. They can make paper airplanes, or we give them little bombers. They do some crafts or whatever, and then they've got acres to run around in, and then sit down, watch a movie, and that's totally free. You just show up, you do your thing, you watch the movie. So we're doing Flicks of Flight as an idea. We have other ideas, but we haven't been able to pull them off yet.
You haven't been able to execute them,
yeah.
Where do you see Castle in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, for sure, we're going to have our rodeo cover and our 60,000 square foot pavilion done.
Awesome.
And then if I go all the way out 10 years, so that's a short timeline. That's a 3 to 5 year timeline. Mm-hmm. At the 10-year timeline, if everything goes great, I'll have 3 more buildings put up, and I'll put most of the artifacts indoors.
Awesome.
So that's the long-term vision. At a minimum, at the 10-year point, we'll have another pavilion put in. So I'm hoping that we have 2 buildings put up. And the idea being is that if we become a more convenient, my objectives are to double our attendance at our special events, our open cockpit days, which is a difficult proposition. Triple our attendance in the summertime, because there's a lot of people, believe it or not, that come through Atwater and Merced and are going to Yosemite. And a lot of those tour bus companies, or those individuals who are doing that, are wanting to have a place where they can do something on the bookends of going to Yosemite. Right now, in the middle of summer, you come out here for a bookend, you have to be a real enthusiast. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to go out in the sun at 104 degrees. Now, if I put a really good portion of my venue under cover, Now I can come out, I can get something cool to drink, I can see some really rare artifacts and some cool airplanes while I'm in the shade and I'm not baking.
Yeah.
It becomes a little more compelling, so I can get more people here on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, it makes it more attractive. People are going to see pictures and say, "Hey, I want to go check out Castle Air Museum and check out all those planes." And they got a really nice setup out there. It's ran professionally. I like that you mentioned that we're the middle point essentially on the way to Yosemite, because folks, international tourists, essentially when they fly into San Francisco, they got to drive through the valley and go to Yosemite. So to make Castle Air Museum an attractive place for those tourists to come and check it out as they go to Yosemite.
So we get a lot. Yeah, we actually get a lot of those. You know, especially the Europeans. They'll fly into San Francisco and they'll rent an RV, and then they spend the night in our RV park.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, these other ancillary visions that we have is expanding the size of the RV park so that we can accommodate more or vacationers in that method.
More folks, yeah.
More folks, and then we're trying to enter. We've gone through a monumental effort to capture our image and our name and our business in the digital space, because we didn't own any of that. So it's been an intensive effort over the last year to get that and make our name, image, and likeness and all of that stuff actually something that we manage and that we own and that people can see. Because like a year ago, if you had typed in Castle Air Museum, it didn't come up number one.
Yeah.
By name.
Yeah.
It'd show up 20.
Yeah, Google's crazy.
Yeah, so you gotta figure all that out, right?
Optimize it,
and then becoming a verified business, so that people, and so you get that image right, it starts to draw traffic, and then we want to create partnerships with the hotels in the local area. You know, we want to have preferred business partners. You know, if you're coming to Atwater Merced, hey, not only visit the museum, but stay at this place. And if you go stay at that place, hey, we have this partner out here in Castle Air Museum.
Yeah.
So we're trying to build those kind of linkages with our other business partners in there so that we can kind of create a place where people can fly into San Francisco, have a place to stop, have a nice place to stay, have a venue that'll kind of book in your trip into the valley or into Yosemite, and then come back out. So I start looking, that's kind of like an operational vision, right? I have this vision of building out more of the museum and putting it undercover, but my operational vision is to enter into these partnerships with all of these other businesses in the community and just try to get everyone's, you know, if someone's coming into town and they're an aviation enthusiast, then they'll stay with one of our travel partners, or they'll
absolutely
get on a bus or whatever.
So I do know that there is a hotel coming to Atwater. So when everybody was complaining on the internet, I was like, it's actually a great idea because for this reason right here. So for the people out there that were complaining about the hotel, it brings revenue to the community. Like, I think a lot of people have that misconception, like, who's going to stop in Atwater? Well, hello, Castle Air Force Base can use it a lot. And then like the people that travel from Europe and all these other countries, they come here. Matter of fact, I think there was a family that was just here they sounded like foreigners. They were not speaking English.
Yeah, when we were in the gift shop before he came in here. Absolutely, yeah. All the time.
You know, real quick too, because we're a small town just like Ceres, right?
Yeah.
Ceres is just up the road. The growth and development that I've seen in Ceres.
Oh, man, it's blowing up.
Yeah, and especially utilizing the 99 because so many people travel up and down to have that stop. So to have a hotel being built here in Atwater is good for revenue. To have the museum continue to build those partnerships and continue to be rooted in the community is very essential. I know one thing that we haven't touched on, though, is with all this growth happening, I'm assuming there's going to be a lot more interactive things happening here, like maybe a flight simulator.
Yes, we have one, and it kind of fell in disrepair. And it's one of those things that once we have a place to put it indoors, then it becomes a viable option for us. So getting that 60,000 square foot box, we've got a lot of artifacts and stuff in our archive that we have a full hangar of stuff that we can't keep outside. That basically the only time you see that is on open cockpit weekends, right? We run a free shuttle that goes from the back of the main grounds here.
I did not know that.
It takes you out to the restoration hangar in the hidden collection.
I did not know that part.
So people come up here and they miss that, but right now that's the only way to see the stealth fighter, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's where it's at. And then we have all of these other just unique things that are out there in that hangar. Well, once we get a box that's here, we can move that stuff out of that hangar and we can put it on display. So that just adds more value to what's going on here. So, and the simulator is one of those things, because now I have a place where I can keep it out of the dirt and the dust, won't get wet. The temperature extremes, I narrow the temperature extremes down, and really flight simulators are pretty easy these days.
Yeah.
It used to be hard.
Now, is the space emulator still available, and does that still function? Because I know that I did come out here in the 5th grade, which was over 20 years.
I was here when I was young too. I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah, because I remember the space simulator being out here. Is that still functioning at all? No.
Man. So, like I said, back in those days, running a simulator was it was a difficult task.
Oh, really?
So we had some volunteers during that time period, and everyone gets older, and some of them are still around, but they're old people. You had to have a specialized skill, and these were folks that used to run the simulators at the base. So they have a background in it, they knew what was going on, and they kept those things running. And then, but as people get older and we lose them, then we lose that skill set. Well, the simulator technology has come down to some, if you've ever done Microsoft Flight Simulator or any of those things, you can get really high fidelity stuff. And what's the DGS guys, the guys that are flying the fighters online they have their videos. I can't remember.
The drones?
No, they are.
Is this more of like a simulator, like on a video game type thing?
Yes, they're flying on their PCs, and they're flying very high fidelity simulators of modern day fighters.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's called DGS.
It might be DGS. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but
you know,
I know my buddy Joey would know that, because he's a pilot as well, and he did like all the Microsoft flight simulators and Xbox flight, like all of that stuff, and he had like a joystick and everything for it. So
the fidelity is so high that you can train in systems to prep you for getting checked out in a real airplane. Like we take lots of side paths here. I had to do some training in a 737, and it was just all I had to do was fly the airplane. Well, my sim partner was a 24-year-old kid out of Florida, and he knew where all the switches were in the airplane. Like, here, I'll turn the APU on for you.
How do you know that?
Yeah, why do you know that? And he says, I've been flying the simulator and whatever for the last 10 months just to get ready for this. Okay.
That's so cool.
I got 180 hours under my belt.
You know what, Mom? Because video games are cool, this is why you need to let them play video games, because they can get into stuff like this.
It's crazy. Yeah, for sure.
No, I'm just teasing, Mom.
I still want you to pay attention to me.
No, I did. Anyway, but no, like people don't realize, like, when it comes to like simulations, like how accurate they can get it.
Yeah.
And I know, and I'll shout out to my buddy Joey. He spent a lot of time playing the flight simulator, and he had like this little crew that he would get online with, and there was like people in air traffic control, like they would practice and all this, fine tune it and everything so they can pass their test. And hey, flight simulators, there's a tractor simulator, there's all kind of simulators out there too.
There was a simulator that I tried out. It was a racing simulator, and he had the entire setup, the whole frame and everything, and the steering wheel. It had the pressure, whatever.
The resistance,
servo feedback. Yeah.
And if you let's say you're driving and you were about to crash into the wall, he was like, just let go of it. He's like, because it's gonna yank you if you don't. I was like, okay. So it's cool how realistic stuff like that can get.
Yeah. I had a gentleman that we'd fly around to races in the week. He was on a simulator, and then so he'd be ready for the track.
Yeah.
On
Get
Saturday.
all those reps in. You know what's even crazier too, and I know we're probably short on time, but
we've gone over time maybe.
I'll mention this real quick is the virtual reality aspect of it.
Yep.
I'm assuming that when you get in those simulators, you throw on the VR headset, and it's even more realistic.
Yeah.
2, AI is becoming more prevalent. I'm excited to see how AI affects aviation and how Castle Air Museum utilizes AI to grow.
We've got to figure that out. It's having a place to host it. You talk about AI changing the way that we do business. When I learned to fly in the Air Force, it was a 13-month process. By putting the students, housing them with the simulator in the room. Like when I went through the simulator, was a big building that you had to travel to, and it took 13 guys, contractors and pocket protectors and everything to keep those things running.
Yeah.
Now they put a simulator with VR goggles in an apartment in the living room, and they put 2 pilot training students in there. And when they're not at the base, they're at home, they're in that simulator, and they're crushing the amount of time that it takes to produce a pilot from 13 months down to 6.
Wow.
So there's a lot of value to being able to just do reps at your own pace and do a lot of it before you get into a machine and start burning real money.
Yeah.
And they're just better at it. And then the machine, and it's not just being able to burn the reps. Because of the AI and the hooks that you put in there, it'll debrief you. People don't understand. That's what makes us so lethal as a fighting force is we go out and we do things, we practice, we do things in real world. When it's all over, we always come back and we do a debrief. Mm-hmm. And we record everything. And that's the place where you really learn what's going on. It's because you see things that you didn't see in the
heat of the
moment. And now you're just building this library of events and procedures and processes that you can lay back on later, and you're just better. So it's not just the doing the reps; it's the actual review of the practice that you're doing.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Makes you learn and
refine, perfect. I mean, like that's in every little craft that you do. Like whether you're playing video games, playing baseball, playing football, any of this, like you do the reps and then you come back and you do the critiquing. And if you don't fix those critiques, it can be a mistake that could potentially cost your life or your livelihood. So
that's right.
So, but yeah, it's always about repetitions. I can't stress that enough. Repetition, and then the review aspect of everything is also crucial.
There's a reason why football teams watch tape on Monday.
Oh, man. So quarterbacking or Monday quarterbacking, that's always – I played football too, so it's like one of those things like I hated it at the time, but then like once you get that and it's a memory bank. Hey, he did this last time. Now I need to do this as an adjustment. Or like I was a baseball catcher, so it's like, hey, he went after that curveball, and he's probably expecting curveball on 0-2 count. Let's try and change it up, go 0-2 on the inside corner. Like it's all – and it's funny. My dad's like, man – you just got a mindset for baseball. Like I can see like a 0-2 count, and then it's like, yeah, he should probably go curveball or change up, like in or out. Like sure enough, curveball or change up, and that's what's coming. He's like, how did you know that? It's like just the repetitions of everything.
Yeah, know the game.
Yeah, you know the game. Yeah. Tendencies is another thing, so like what their tendencies are and stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much going to wrap up this episode. We kind of want to do some housekeeping as we do this. So next Friday, I'm going to get this podcast out tomorrow, July 4th of July. Woohoo! Happy birthday, America.
Indeed.
249th birthday.
Happy
Get up
Independence
for
Day.
Yeah, happy Independence Day to everybody. So 4th of July is tomorrow. We have our rib cook-off next Friday, July 11th. Please get your tickets. Sponsorships are still available. No, we're probably going to be closing that off pretty soon.
Yeah, we're done with sponsorships.
Yeah.
But thank you to everybody that sponsored.
Yes, thank you for everybody that sponsored. You know, we have quite a few sponsorships. I think we raised quite a bit of money for that too. So
we did. We have a lot of support from sponsors, community, professionals, volunteers. So we're excited to host another annual rib cook-off.
Yes.
16 teams.
Yeah,
competing.
I was going to say 15 or 16 teams. I think it is 16.
Yeah.
We're going to have DJ Ace, which is also Eric Ellis. He's part of the YPN. He's going to be out there spinning the what is it, the disc? Spinning the vinyls. That's what it is. So he'll be spinning the turntables. That's what it is, man.
The turntables. There you go.
That's what it is. So me, Michael, we're going to be the MCs alongside with Eric as well. He'll help out with that. Ribs judges. Man, I keep forgetting the rib judges. I know the DA.
Some prominent local leaders will be out there for sure. I'm not.
Yeah, no, I know Vern Warkey's going to be cooking, so come out and say hi to Sheriff Vern Warkey. Tickets, let me get the ticket prices. $25 each. Buy 4, get the 5th one for free. At the door, they will be $30. So please get your tickets as soon as possible. Hit up anybody that's in the YPN or somebody at the association. They would be able to help you out with that. But yeah, I think that's the only thing we got going on is the rib cook-off next Friday. Yeah. We'll be serving lunch from 12 to 2, so come hang out.
Any shout-outs?
Yeah, any shout-outs that you got?
Close out?
Well, thanks for you guys. And Jared.
Shout out to Jared Hines with the YPN as well. He's also a member.
He's a member of the board, and he's also a crew chief out here. He's great. So really glad that he's on board.
Huge shout out to Jared. He's been trying to get you onto the podcast for like the last 2 weeks, but I think it's perfect that we got you this week because it is 4th of July weekend. 4th
of July, hey, I would encourage everyone, don't just do barbecue, don't just do fireworks, maybe read the document.
Yeah.
Pull it out. The first paragraph is, if you don't know that, I don't know if they memorize it.
The people. This is the reason why I wore this shirt today. We the people.
We're sliding into 250 years. We should probably get that out, read it, and wrap our brain about what those guys are really saying. They were geniuses.
Yeah, they were geniuses back in 1770.
They really were.
Started in 1770.
1775, the birthday of that's why it's the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army. That happened about this. That's what happened. That's why we had the big parade, because it was 200. We had an army. It was an act of war. Raising an army and fighting the world's largest military power at the time. When you do that, that was an act of war. So we were at war with Britain for a year before we actually declared our independence.
Correct.
It's important to be aware of that. George Washington was appointed commander-in-chief, and off he went. He formed an army, and off we were. We were at war with the world's superpower at the time. And
what a scrappy army they had. I can't remember what documentary I watched this on, but I think it was Spike TV. And they were talking about General George Washington and like all the stuff that they had. They didn't have a whole lot of ammo. They had to be very creative with everything they did. They put like nails and stuff in like the cannons and shot them off, and like it was crazy. The tactical dogfights that they would get into, and it was crazy. I think they were the ones that actually invented the U, is what it was. So they would trap the people in and attack when they would get in. So he was the one that invented the U. Like I could be wrong, but that's
the salient ambush.
They criticized the way that we fought because we were winning, and we won.
Unfortunately, we lost a lot in the process. You don't realize it, but we lost a lot. But in the end, we won. And George Washington was the indispensable man, and a man of incredible courage and will and character.
Yeah,
the indispensable man. He was a man of great character. It's always worthy. And as we go into this year 250, I'm encouraging, get your kids to read about these geniuses and for what they really were, and don't listen to the hype. There's a lot of good There's a lot of good books out there that are actually well written and well researched that are worthy. So, read the document.
Yes.
July 4th.
Yes. With that, I just want to say happy 4th of July, because I'm planning on getting this out on Friday, 4th of July. Happy 4th of July. Have a fun, have a safe one. If you are drinking, please designate a driver. I don't want to read anything in the paper or on Facebook that any of my loved ones or anybody else's loved ones pass away. So please, please, please be safe. Please try and keep all your digits. That's another one that happens to happen. So anyway, with that, happy 4th of July. This was episode number 30 with General Garrison. What an honor and a pleasure it was speaking with you today. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time serving in the military as well. Sure. So anyway, with that, happy 4th of July. We'll see you on the next one.